Turn our attention now to the agriculture sector. And I'm being joined on the program by the Regional Director, Southwest Regional Director of Ministry of Agriculture, Mr. Olalekan Quadri. Mr. Quadri, thank you so much for joining me on the program.
It's a pleasure being here.
So, interesting times for the Nigerian economy. Well, interesting in a variety of ways. For some people it's good, for some people it's bad.
That's good.
My guests who just left the program now, we're talking about the latest developments with regards the forex market. The central bank has now taken a stance and closed the RDAS. Now we have a situation where there's more competition, and so you have more buyers and you have more sellers, everybody going to the same market.
Yeah.
But what kind of implication is this going to have on the agriculture sector? Because at this time, that is one sector that everybody is looking at to kind of redeem Nigeria.
Well, what's the implication on the agri sector now is such that if you are exporting, for example, you are going to be at an advantage. But bringing in food, for example, into the country is going to be more expensive because you need more dollars to be able to, you need more naira to be able to procure your dollar. And I think what any reasonable company will do that want to take advantage of this opportunity, because as far as I'm concerned, I see it as an opportunity, for agri sector now to grow in leaps and bounds. For example, any smart company now should begin to look for, to do or to embark on backward integration. In other words, you begin to source your raw materials locally rather than importing your raw materials. That will definitely help you to survive this storm that we're having currently now in the country.
But then you see, in spite of the fact that exporting at this time looks very attractive, they don't get some farmers are complaining that they don't get enough encouragement or enough incentives to begin to export. And so it comes back again to the fact that the government needs to do more to encourage farmers across the board to heavily begin to export.
Yes, definitely. Government is doing a lot, actually, to encourage farmers to begin to export. But then before you can export, there is need for you to add value. You need to understand the markets. You need to come up with right pricing. You need to, for example, you need to be conscious of your quality assurance, because you can't just take anything to the international market. So these are some of the issues that need to be addressed. But then government is doing a lot in this regard. For example, in area of financing, government is actually helping a lot of the private sector in area of, recently the federal government launched what we call FAFIN, Fund for Agricultural Development, for example, in Nigeria. These are financial instruments to actually help our farmers and processors alike, so that they will be able to access funds at reasonable interest rates.
But they still complained about easily accessing those funds. They still complain that the bureaucracy is too much. And so, for instance, a farmer who doesn't need so much money, maybe between 1 or 2 million naira to buy seeds or to cultivate the land, begins to have so much issues accessing these funds. You have to have this, you have to have that. And, is it that the information isn't properly passed to them that, look, you can access these funds, but you need to have some certain collateral to be able to access it?
Well, there are so many funding options, funding windows in the agricultural sector today. And all you need to do is, for example, BOI. The BOI, the Bank of Industry, for example, has a funding window whereby processors can actually access, so that they will be able to add value to whatever they are producing. The same thing with Bank of Agriculture. Bank of Agriculture have been recapitalized by the federal government, and so they have finance to give to farmers at a reasonable interest rate, so that they will be able to access. But the problem is that some of these farmers, they don't even have records. They don't have records. They don't have. You may talk about issue of collateral, but then it is not. If you come together in form of cooperative, for example, it is easier for you to access funds from some of these development banks.
So what is the ministry trying to do to encourage such farmers to keep records? Because most of them, up until when the federal government decided to take a very strong interest in it and turn agriculture to agribusiness, most of the farmers that we usually have are not very savvy in terms of keeping records. So what is being done to help them? Because when those farmers are helped, we begin to see it translate across the value chain to a better, agribusiness that we're trying to see in Nigeria.
And that is what has informed the launching of youth employment in agriculture by the federal government, for example. And they are trying to raise a new generation of farmers. 20,000 in each state of the federation.
So what happens to the old generation of farmers?
Well, the old generation of farmers, yes, they are still providing. The ministry provides extension services. Ministry provides the technical skills to actually help these farmers so that they can begin to produce. So that they can begin to leverage on modern technologies and also build their business skills. Otherwise, it will be difficult for them to be able to assess some of these. For example, if you want to approach bank for loan and you don't have a business plan, it will be difficult because don't forget that banks have access to shareholder funds. It's not money for anybody. No, it is money, it is shareholders' money, and therefore you need to come with a bankable investment plan that will actually that the bank can look at and see that actually you have a profitable business that you want to put across on the board. So it is important for farmers, for old generation farmers, to come together as a cooperative, for example, so that it will be easier for them to access loan. And of course, if you also have reasonable investment, you can package it and also approach BOI, for example, for value addition.
In terms of value addition now,
yes.
Another challenge that they've really talked about is the fact that they do not have equipment. Or when the equipment does come, it doesn't get to them.
Well, in the case of, I'm surprised to hear that because...
I had a farmer who was on the program a couple of days ago, that was one of the challenges.
Recently in Abuja, for example, equipment were given to master bakers, for example, to assist them in this cassava inclusion in bread policy of the federal government. Equipments were given to them so that to actually help them so that this policy can actually be actualized. So all you need to do as an investor is to come up with a bankable plan and then approach Bank of Industry. It depends on the aspect of the value chain you are interested in. Is it the processing? Is it primary production? If it is primary production, even you have even seen banks in recent times that are even that are farmers friendly. For example, First Bank and some of these other banks. Bank also they are financing agricultural production. They do. Even apart from development banks that we have. So all you need to do is actually to come up with a bankable project that first and foremost, you must have been engaged in that business before you can even approach them. Not that you just wake up from one side of the bed and say, okay, look, I want to begin to invest in agriculture. Banks are not likely to offer loans to such investor. But the important thing is, yes, you can be a starter, but all you need to do is to first of all put your house in order. Make sure you get the necessary skills, business management skills, you also get the technical skills, and that is why the ministry is there to offer extension activity services to any would-be investors. And the most interesting thing is that you can see investors even coming in from outside the country, whereas people within are not taking maximum advantage of the opportunities that you have in the agri sector in Nigeria.
Maybe because they feel as if it's going to be like you're going to use one hand to give them and use the other hand to take it back.
No. You and I, you know quite well that, as I know, that there are a lot of incentives now, especially in the area of fiscal policies, that governments can give you pioneer status, they can give you tax relief, they can give you tax holidays. Even importation of equipment, for example, now, does attract zero duty. These are some of the measures that government have put in place to actually encourage private sector to become major players in the agri sector of the economy.
In terms of encouraging major players in the sector, it seems as if more attention is being paid to crop production and not as much to animal husbandry or even aquaculture. And these are aspects of agriculture that needs also to be boosted because they also have very high export value. Definitely.
But in the ministry recently, under the leadership of Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, honestly, I'm really impressed that we are touching virtually all the commodity value chains. For example, in fisheries, for example, we are there. We are helping a lot of farmers through this, our national farmers registration all over the country. And we are giving fingerlings out to farmers. We are giving them feed. And that is why you have seen that despite the fact that the dollar is increasing and naira is going down, that is why you have not experienced food insecurity. You can see that if you look at it, if you check the prices of food commodity in recent time, you will discover that you have relatively stable food prices in the market.
But Mr. Quadri, just before we go, I know that we've talked about those challenges, and the ministry really needs to be looking at those challenges because the farmers, not all the farmers are particularly happy at this time. But is this the best time now for agribusiness?
Honestly, there cannot be a better time than now for agribusiness because the opportunities are just there. They are very, very enormous. Is it in livestock sector? Is it in fishery sector? Is it in crop sector? Is it in value addition, that is processing? Can you imagine, for example, Nigeria still bringing pineapples from neighboring countries? That is unacceptable. Companies still import juice into the country today. You can't begin to spend your hand and foreign exchange on some of these commodities. You need to look in what is. Are you telling me that Nigerian climate is not favorable for some of these food production? They are very, very suitable. So what we need to do as a nation now is actually to key into the opportunities that is now open in the agri sector.
Thank you, Mr. Quadri, for joining me on the program this morning and talking so much about agribusiness. But I'm sure we're going to have this conversation again. This is not the last.
I'm very sure
Definitely.
about that. Thank you very much.
Mr. Olaleko Quadri is the Southwest Regional Director of the Ministry of Agriculture, and we've been taking a look at some of the developments on that in that sector, of course, with regards to the latest developments as well on the forex market. But that's it on today's edition of the program. If you missed out on it, don't forget you can watch it on youtube.com/channelsweb/videos. I'm Harriet Agbenyi. Bye-bye.